Good evening and welcome, everyone. It's a great joy to be here for our first evening of our parish mission. Thank you for coming. And as I think most of you know, Father Greg Hammond will be our preacher these next 3 evenings. He was born in New Rockford, North Dakota. He has 2 brothers. His family still lives there. And he has 2 aunts who I know. You'll never believe whose parish they belong to. St. Anthony's in Fargo, of course. Okay, well, Mary does. Aunt Joy, she comes sometimes. He went to school at NDSU, his undergraduate studies for 4 years. Spent the 2 years then, he discerned his vocation, and then spent 2 years at Cardinal Minch Seminary, where he studied philosophy, and then graduated top of his class. Okay, I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but it sounds good, doesn't it? He probably did, though. He'll probably kick me if I told people, but... And then he went to Mount St. Mary's, where he studied theology for 4 years. And then, as you know, after he was ordained in 2012, so this is his 10th anniversary already, he spent 5 years ago, was here at St. Michael's for 3 of those years. And so he's been a pastor now in Lemoore at Holy Rosary Parish for the past 5 years, with 2 mission parishes attached to it in Dickey and Verona. So with great joy, we're going to begin with Exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. You guys probably know in the back of your missalettes, you can find the things there, and then whatever else we're going to sing, Emily will cue us, okay? And so I invite you to get out your missalettes as we begin our evening.
Good evening. I invite you to sit back. Please be seated and comfortable. Like I said during my homilies this weekend, if you were able to be here for it at St. Michael's, it's really a pleasure to be back here in this grand old parish, in the heart of Grand Forks, in this nice rooted neighborhood here on the north side of downtown. I really loved my 3 years here, and it's just great to be able to dip back into that, and again to see so many familiar faces. I better start with a little bit of honesty. I definitely did not graduate at the top of my class in seminary. 100% did not. I really need to say that because I was ordained with the son of somebody in the pews here. Although we were not classmates in the same seminary for major seminary, I'm pretty sure I was so ready to be done teaching. I'm pretty sure that I got a D in my American Church History class there, one of the last things I had to complete at the end of my time in the seminary. So if there was any chance that I was going to be graduating at the top of my class before that, I definitely did not end up graduating at the top of the class after that. Father Courtwright told me that last week, when he mentioned that I would be back here to preach the mission this week, and that I might be coming in as the mission priest to preach, not having to be the day-to-day pastor of the parish. Usually a mission priest might lob some spiritual grenades out into the congregation. Well, I'm not much of a grenade kind of person. What I like more than grenades are firecrackers. Nobody would call me a firecracker, I don't think, probably not. That would not fit my personality to be a firecracker, but I always liked firecrackers. And firecrackers aren't going to make the same amount of chaos as a grenade will, but they can leave their own mark. That's for darn sure. I loved as a boy. I loved the 4th of July, and would take those those Black Cat firecrackers that you buy in packs of 100 or more, unraveling each of them, and doing exactly what you are not supposed to do. You hold it in your hand as you light the fuse. Sometimes that fuse burns down in about a quarter of a second, and so it is not wise to do what I am telling you I did, and maybe planting some ideas in the minds of the youth here, corrupting the minds of the youth. But I'd love to stick them in the ground and blow them up and see how big of a crater they might make in the garden or in the driveway or something like that. But even greater was to light it and then toss it into a metal bucket half filled with water, and then it would really just rattle the sides of that bucket and make a big explosion of water into the air and smoke, and that was a lot of fun. Really made the 4th of July every year. So a firecracker, much more contained, but can still pack quite a punch when used properly. So parents, if you're kind of upset that maybe I'm planting ideas in the minds of your children here, don't worry, they would have thought of it themselves anyway, I'm sure. So it did not require me to put that in their minds. But I've always loved the Lord's Prayer. That's going to be our theme for tonight and the next couple of nights. I've always loved the Lord's Prayer, which maybe sounds strange to say. It's like saying I love the sky, because the sky's always there, right? It's always there, and you don't think of it. It's just normal. How much do we think of the Lord's Prayer when we are praying it? We probably don't think of it too much because it is so familiar to us, taught to us from childhood, and therefore we rattle it off. We were maybe taught to use it as a nighttime prayer by our parents, or if not, we maybe said it in the rosary, but it's just so familiar to us. Although it's familiar, that does not mean it doesn't have power to it. I've loved the Lord's Prayer not all my life, but I've loved the Lord's Prayer since a specific day. I don't remember when it was, per se, but I have the clear memory of myself as a little boy, not exactly sure how old I was. I had to have been less than 10 because I can remember the bed in the bedroom that I was in, sharing it with my brother. I was on the top bunk. So I was laying down in bed. I couldn't kneel by the side of the bed since I was in the top bunk. So I was laying down in bed, saying my night prayers, which for that period of time included an Our Father. So I was saying an Our Father there, like I probably did most nights. And I say that the Lord spoke to me that night, although, of course, he did not speak in a way that was like audible, not in the way that was even really in words, but the Lord at least guided my thoughts to really notice what I was saying in a way that I had never noticed before. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We know the words. But suddenly I was struck with this sense of seriousness. It wasn't scary, but I knew that it was important. I had just said, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I'd never really, at least I didn't remember having ever really thought about those words before as I said them. And so now I was realizing that I had just asked the Lord for something. I had asked that his kingdom would come. I had asked the Lord, or at least expressed, that I wanted his will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. And if I wanted his will to be done, that means I now have a part to play in that. I can't expect other people to do his will. That includes me. Not only did it include me, but I had kind of committed myself now. I just said it. I can't back out from that. I had said it, and I had, in fact, said it like 1,000 times already up to that point in my life. I had really quite committed myself to doing what I could to bring in the Lord's kingdom and to do God's will in my life. And there I was as, let's say, a 10-year-old. What does that mean to a 10-year-old to do God's will? Well, I didn't know the answer at that point, and I'm still trying to figure out that answer on a day-to-day basis. But I knew that this had to give some direction to my life. Now again, there I am, a 10-year-old kid. I got up the next day and went to 4th grade, or whatever was going on that summer, if it was summer at that time. I still did what little kids do. I got older and did what teenagers do. In all the ways that teenagers can be tempted to do things that are not the Lord's will and are not bringing the Lord's kingdom into this world. But when the Lord speaks to us, doesn't it stick? Doesn't it resonate? We might not think about it, we might not apply it as much as we ought to, but we don't forget it. And it comes back. And thank the Lord that it does. As Father Corey had mentioned, I grew up in New Rockford, North Dakota. It's an easy 2-hour drive from here. Just go to Thompson, get on Highway 15, and you'll eventually find your way to New Rockford. It's a town of about 1,200 people. I grew up in my class was kind of smallish at the time, my school class. I graduated with 23 other people. I just had my 20-year class reunion last summer. 23 other people. There were 11 other Catholics, or there were 11 total Catholics in my graduating class, graduated 2001. 11 Catholics total. Well, about half the population of my class was Catholic. I didn't know necessarily before I went home for the class reunion. I didn't know, I suspected, but my suspicions were confirmed that, yeah, out of the 11 Catholics in my graduating class, to this day, I am the only one that practices the Catholic faith. Startling fact. Startling when you acknowledge it, when you kind of put it out there as plain as that. But when we think about the context of the faith, the changing place of the church, the changing level of influence of the church in the world, and just the parish, I don't mean the global church, the parish in our world today, does that really surprise us? If we really stopped and thought, oh yeah, think of this class or that class, the class of maybe your own, the class of people that your child was a part of. Yeah, it's tough, but it's not uncommon. We're really seeing an ongoing transformation of the state of the church in our country and in the world. You know, I feel like I see this as totally an anecdotal observation, so take it for whatever it's worth. And don't get upset with me for it, please, or let's talk kindly about it afterwards if you have some thoughts. But I feel like I see some kind of generational patterns going from some older members of society down to my generation and now maybe another generation younger. I feel like I see people who are probably now, let's say, high 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe what would typically be called like a baby boomer generation. People raised in a time when Catholic parishes were strong, Catholic schools were populated with kids. A parish like St. Michael's was so much more of an anchor in the community. Catholic culture was still so much stronger. A lot of people, if you're a member of that generation, you look around and we see you're probably one of the more predominant classes, age groups of people that we see in a parish. But we also know very well that a lot of members of that generation aren't, whether maybe practicing Catholics or maybe very well not practicing Christians at all anymore. I hear often from that generation, if the person is not practicing anymore, it's not uncommon that I would hear the kind of critique like, church, that was always kind of forced on me as a kid, always just an obligation in their family. My mom's family talks about having to pray the rosary as a family, and not just as a family, but specifically having to pray the rosary on their knees in front of the Christmas tree before they could open their Christmas presents. So they had to kneel there on their knees, looking at the Christmas presents for about 20 minutes before they could open them. I don't know if that was a good idea of my grandparents to do, but I don't know what it means for a person to say, oh, that was always just forced on us as kids. I was not raised in their house, of course. I don't know what the normal practice of the faith might have been like. in a general sort of way, even though every household is different. I don't know what the general practice of the faith might have been like in the 50s or 60s. Probably are definitely stronger than today in most households. Was it oppressive? I don't know. But a lot of people do kind of talk as if it was. But if we move down another generation, the generation of people that maybe grew up in the 70s, that came of age in the 80s, and in the 90s. So now the parent, or the children of those same people, for them, the practice of the faith was often, again speaking in generalities here, not particular families or individuals, but in general. Because the faith still had such a part of the culture and the character of their parents, it was still a noticeable part of their household, although not central often at that period of time. So there's the rise of faith being an important thing among many things that were all treated with somewhat shared importance. That was the rise of sports teams and practices and all kinds of other activities, so many of them good. Those of you who are older remember a time that there were so many fewer activities that were constantly available. You didn't travel as much, even across town, like we do today. But with all the increasing call of those activities, the practice of the faith becomes one of many things that we do when it works. So it was communicated then to the children generally growing up within that era, what's communicated to them, that faith is important, but it's not centrally important. My relationship to the church, maybe I know what parish I'm a member of, and I know the name of the priest, and maybe I went to the school. But most of my time and my attention was spent on other things. Then you move another generation or two down, the generation of young adults today, or those coming of age today. What we have is people who largely, again, speaking in generalizations, not necessarily of individuals, but largely we have a generation of people who have absolutely no ability to be able to articulate why faith, why a belief in God has any value in their lives, why it would be important. To suggest to a person that they should go to church would have no, in many of them, not all, but in many of them, they would have no frame of reference to be able to say, why at all? Even in our own town, this isn't something like a big city phenomenon. This is right here. People with no ability to say, why at all? They would want to go to church on a Sunday. And if we can see that change, that cultural change, let's in our imaginations move that forward another generation or another 2 generations. We can pretty easily imagine how much less of an understanding people are going to have for why this building exists and why it's worth coming here. What are going to be the changes of the landscape of the church? The changes in the population of our pews, the changes of our buildings, which become less and less used, and the influence of the gospel on the culture. Does the teaching of the gospel have the power? Yes, it has the power. Does the teaching of the gospel have that place, though, in society as it's guiding society? We probably look back and think that it was guiding society in such a better way some number of generations ago. Although if we really looked back, we would probably be able to say that We have never lived in an authentically Christian culture, because that's not the character of this world. We're people of sin, growing hopefully towards virtue, but still always wrestling with sin and trying to live out that battle in each time. There's never a perfect age. But we know nonetheless, or we can project, that the changes that have been slow going are really happening faster now. And the future is not going to look like the past. And so not only will the outward picture of the church and the structure, the buildings of the church, and how many buildings the church has, and that foundation, when we lose that, we lose a lot. But what it's really showing is that the heart is gone. What we really lose, much more importantly, is the idea of who we are. Because I'm not just losing my faith as something that our family did. We're losing, if we lose the faith, we lose the idea of who we are as individuals. Have we not been taught by Jesus Christ to call God Father? Did we not also learn that vague sense of who we are? You know, who am I? It's always kind of a hard question to answer. It's a mysterious question. My own identity is often far away from any of us to be able to really put our fingers on. But nonetheless, it grows in my family. You know, we get our name from our family, our last names. Our first names are given to us by choice of our parents. They choose it for us. The culture of the house shapes the idea of how I see myself. You know, how much yelling versus like gentle correction took place in the house. What was the character of discipline in the house? What was the level of expectation in the house? Was I taught to really be able to see myself as somebody who can accomplish good things, or was I taught kind of by the expectations that I didn't really need to try to accomplish good things? All of those things shape my sense of identity. And as formative as that is from the parents and the household at large, when I'm also growing up within that, knowing to some extent that, yes, mom and dad are mom and dad, but even beyond them, going back, like there's the Lord. Beyond my parents, I come from the Lord. I am his child. I am his child because I have been reborn in Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ is the Son of the Father, he can truly call God his Father, but he has given himself to me, and so now I can call God my Father. But even if I don't have that gift of baptism, which I presume all of us in this building do, but even if a person did not have that gift of baptism, and are maybe not by that sacrament able to fully call God Father, nonetheless, they are a beloved creation of God, still made in his image and likeness, and have the opportunity through faith, by being baptized, to be able to call God Father. We might not know where that's going to lead us in life, but at least we have that foundation. I know who I am. I know who loves me. And I know where to go if I feel lost. I can go back home. I can go back to my Father. The Lord wants us to be able to have that solid foundation. The Lord wants us to be able to have that place of trust. And if an individual, and if a culture at large really has no idea of why a church building like this exists in the first place, and much less of an idea of why they would ever want to darken its doors, or what place it can have in its life. If a large percentage of our culture can't fathom that, we're going to have a different culture. I was talking to the other priests around the lunch table this afternoon, and we were talking about the idea of vacation, kind of the theme of my homily earlier today, vacation, that experience of getting some clarity to our minds again. That's the gift of being able to live a vacation well. Well, I started to share the story of of how I really learned that when I was just a college student at NDSU, and I don't even know why I did this, but I decided to take just a week by myself and to go down to the Black Hills. My aunt and uncle, my mom's brother and his wife, had a cabin down in the Deadwood area of the Black Hills. I think I had been there maybe once before, and I just wanted to, maybe I was just going on a personal adventure, right? So I went down, called them up, made the plan, went down to the Black Hills, and started exploring. It's a great place to go. If you've never been there, it's definitely worth going to. You can see Mount Rushmore. I was enjoying my time, having different hikes and exploring, panning for gold, spelunking in a cave, whatever, the kinds of things that you do in places that have terrain, not like our own here. But I was starting to feel, I was there for about a week's time. I was starting to feel kind of anxious because there were so many things to do. And I was running out of time to be able to try and do all of them. It's a common vacation thing to do, right? To do as much as you can in this special place. So it was getting towards the end of the week, and I had a plan for that day. I was going to go back to the place that I had been the day before. There's some great hikes around there. And after doing some hiking in the morning, my plan was to go to Mount Rushmore. Had never seen that before. I really wanted to see the evening display of lighting the faces of the presidents there on Mount Rushmore, and it was around the 4th of July time, so I thought they were going to have fireworks too. So that's worth taking in while I'm down in the area. Well, there I am driving in the morning down to that place I had been the day before to go hiking, and I was driving and had the vague sense that I think I'm driving too much. But did not actually realize that whole time that I had not actually seen the landscape of this road ever before in my life. Well, I had taken a wrong turn without noticing it, until finally, in those windy roads of the Black Hills, I bent around a curve, and there is Mount Rushmore right in front of me, about 6 hours earlier in the day than I had wanted it to be. So, okay, what am I supposed to do now? Do I check out Mount Rushmore now and then hike later, but then I'm not going to be able to see the lighting of the faces? Do I try to go do some hiking now, but it's going to take me another hour to get to the place I had wanted to be, and it was just going to throw the whole day off? So I just said, fine, I'm just going to stay here at Mount Rushmore all day. It was like 10 a.m. and the lighting of the faces was at like 9 p.m. Now, if you've been to Mount Rushmore, it's great, but there is not 13 hours of activities to do at Mount Rushmore. You can have a good time in the museum. You can learn a lot. There's some really simple trails that you can hike on, but that's about it. There is not 13 hours of activity that you can do at Mount Rushmore. But there I was, spending about 13 hours of time at Mount Rushmore. Luckily, I had a book along. It was a slow day, the first slow day of the whole trip. And I enjoyed it. I got to soak it in. I got to really appreciate what it was. And I just got to appreciate the time. Reading the book. I was definitely growing in my faith. That was a time that I was heavily discerning the priesthood, so I was praying during my time there too. And it totally changed the rest of the tenor of my vacation. So many things just dropped off my list of things I was hoping to do. No, one good thing each day. But really, soak it in. I did many fewer things, but I experienced how much richer all of those things were as I just let myself experience them, rather than thinking about the next thing that I was hoping to be able to do that day, even before I was ready to go there. That's the power that stress has on us, right? It fully takes us out of the time and the place that we are, even though we can do nothing about that other time and place. We can only do something about where I am. And I also can't experience the Lord in another time and place than where I am. We worry about the future. But God is not somewhere in the future. We worry about the past. We maybe get stuck on things that happened in the past. But I can't do anything about the past. The past is solidified. If I have a broken relationship with somebody, maybe right now I can go and do something to rectify that. But that's the present. I can do that now. But I can't change anything about the past or the future. I can only do something now. Therefore, God is only now. And we always have the chance, even if my day, the day that I have right now, seems quite uninteresting, quite boring. And maybe I'm wondering if I was supposed to be doing something entirely different. Nonetheless, only right now, and always right now, I can turn to the Lord and I can encounter Him. And I can turn to the Lord with that sense of trust. I can turn to the Lord with that sense of confidence that even if I've kind of mucked some things up, He is my Father. There's a great book by Mark Hart. He's one of the young adult Catholic speakers. Well, he's not so young adult anymore. He's older than myself. But he's one of those people that does the Catholic speaking circuit around the country. Mark Hart. He wrote a great book on the Lord's Prayer. And in that, he gives the example of the time that he and his family came back from vacation. And because he travels a lot, he's obviously away from his family a lot. So they had this great vacation, whatever it was that they were doing. He had young children at the time. And as they got back the next day or something, he was packing again to leave. He had just a week of constant and intense time with his family. And as he's packing to leave, just something normal for himself, his little girl starts crying. She doesn't want her dad to go away. And he writes how he had a mixture of emotions, as you can maybe imagine. He was kind of frustrated. He's doing this for the family. He just shelled out a lot of money for that family vacation. And he's got other bills to pay too, right? So he's doing this for the family. And here she is crying about it. And didn't she just have a week's worth of time with him? It's going to be fine, right? But he says that what he had kind of expected was that his family was probably not wanting more time with him. Like they had probably over the past intense week of vacation gotten like filled up with dad time. And now it was going to be nice for them to not have him there. And yet here she is crying. Because for her, that experience of dad being around so much while they were together was great. It wasn't something that filled her up and made her, that little girl, ready for some non-dad time. It made her want him to be around all the more. Beautiful. Moving. Why would he have expected anything different? But don't we often have the same expectation? Why would we expect anything different? I'm a gift. The Lord has made me because he delights in me. The Lord delights in each one of us. The Lord is not sick of us, sick of time with us. He never can be. Therefore, other people too have the potential to value time with me and to not get sick of time with me. Potential, at least. We all have room to grow in that. But is that not the case? We are a gift. We are a gift because the Lord has made us, because the Lord delighted in us enough to even want to make us. If I do not know the Lord, I cannot know that fact. If I do not believe that the Lord is there and the Lord wanted me here, I cannot operate that way. If I believe wrongly that my existence here is just a random fact that is going to, at some random moment, pass away and will be forever done. I might be able to enjoy a little bit of life, but I'm not going to be able to find much meaning to it. I'm not going to be able to see that life is a gift and that I myself am a gift. What did the Lord give to his apostles when they asked him, Lord, teach us how to pray like John the Baptist taught his own disciples how to pray? And he opens up for them this prayer of the Our Father, what we call the Our Father. What was he giving to them? He was giving them words that we repeat to this day. He was giving them a sort of model, a certain sort of formula that we could recite, but also maybe use as a sort of pattern for our own prayer. We can learn like what kind of attitude I should have for the Lord, for the times that I pray. Yeah, he was giving them, and he's giving us those things. But all of it is wrapped up just in those first two words, Our Father. And the spiritual masters of depth, much more than I am able to bring to you today, when they talk about prayer, they talk about the value of using these prayers, the prayers that we're taught from our childhood. They talk about the value of using them, but of listening to them as much as we speak them, of sitting with the possibility of being able to sit with each word as we say it and let it steep within our heart. Our Father. Those two words, if we listen to them, they have the opportunity to be able to speak to us for hours. Our Father. It's who he is for us, and it's who he wants us to know is there. He has that heart of a father for us. Pope Benedict speaks of this, how much those first two words show to us the whole character of Jesus Christ. All of Jesus Christ is his work, his teachings, his miracles unfold from those words, our Father. He talks about the time that growing up, a German boy, in the time after World War I, he speaks about Germany at that time being a fatherless country, because hordes of young men had died in World War I in that country, throwing that country that lost the war into a generation of chaos, economic turmoil, poverty, a real void of leadership in the country, a literal void of men in the country. But a culture then looking for somebody to fill that void, looking for somebody who would seem confident enough to feel like they had the answer, and then left them so vulnerable to being manipulated and then led down this path that led to the Second World War. But it was this void left from the literal fatherlessness of the country, because all of those young men, by the hundreds of thousands, had been slaughtered on the fields of Europe. God speaks to us about himself as Father. He gives us his identity. That's the role of a father in a family. To be both firm and heartfelt for his family. And to have that great privilege to do something that is totally not within them to be able to do, but God does it in them. To give to the family, especially to the kids, their first picture of God the Father. Again, something entirely unable to do on their own strength, impossible for any man to do. But yet, God does it. He shapes the children to have an idea of God the Father. How valuable that dad is in a family. How much the children can love the presence of their father and be strengthened by that as they get a sense. It's going to have to develop over the decades of that child's own life, but nonetheless, that first sense of God the Father. So, if Jesus is the perfect image of God the Father, we have Jesus here with us. We have some time here in front of the Blessed Sacrament to speak to him, to be with him. And we have the love of the Father always being poured out upon us through Jesus Christ. He is the perfect image of the Father, Jesus Christ is. And he wants to continue transforming the world. You know what? So what if the world at large does not know him? Or if a smaller percentage of our community knows God than maybe it did 50 years ago? Who cares? 2,000 years ago when Christ sent the apostles out, nobody other than them knew God as Father. But yet they went and they built. God is here as our Father. And as much as we know that and can let him love us and teach us to love him back, then we have no reason to fear the future, but to move into the future with God every step of the way and to allow him to continue to craft the world in the way that he wants to. He is the great builder. And so we'll take a few minutes here just to allow ourselves, each in your own hearts, to be able to speak to the Lord, to pray to him as the Holy Spirit moves you, and then to be able to receive his blessing as we close out tonight's first installment of our mission and look ahead to tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Please join in singing Tantum Ergo, found on the back inside cover of the hymnals.
Tantum ergo sacramentum, venere
join praises. Blessed be God. Blessed be Jesus. Blessed be Jesus Christ. God. Blessed be the name of Jesus. Blessed be his most sacred heart. Blessed be his most precious blood. Blessed be his most sacred sacrament. Blessed be the Holy Spirit. Blessed be the great Mother of God. Blessed be the Holy Intercession.
huh?